Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd and here again, Dave, with another episode. Beautiful sunny day here in Kansas City. Today, excited to help you welcome my guest. She's been working with me for about 3 years. I've known her for 5 or 6. She's kind of MHP specialist, knows a little bit of everything, been vital to my company and our success. Kristin Dreasler. Kristin, thanks for coming on.
Hey, I'm glad to finally be on the show. Only took you 100 episodes.
Right, you're the person behind the scenes, but today you're in front of the scenes. So Kristin handles a lot of the marketing on the podcast, and if you get my weekly newsletter, she does that. If she's giving you any special treatment or discounts on some of my fixed fee documents, she doesn't tell me about it, but she's got she knows my password, she knows my social security number. I trust her inherently, but so don't even pick her off. But Kristin, again, welcome to the show. Tell us a little more about your background. For those of our audience that do not know you, and then we'll jump into today's show.
Sure. I think I'm a lot like anybody in the mobile home park industry. We didn't go to college for mobile homes. There's no mobile home master's program, that you get your bachelor's for. I went to college at University of Kentucky, go Wildcats, and I worked in integrated strategic communications. So really just a fancy way of saying marketing degree. I never planned on being in the mobile home park space. I actually post-college did some work with some nonprofits and worked in the fashion industry where I did buying for a local boutique in Quincy, Illinois. Decided I needed something more. So I jumped on the crazy mobile home park train, and 3 years later, it's treated me well. I've grown, I've learned so much, and got some new skills that I'm here to share today.
Sounds good. Well, one thing that you're good at that most people aren't, and it's one of my least favorite parts of the business, is dealing with mobile home title issues. We got our attorneys here handle the title work on real estate title, but the title work on the mobile homes, predates a lot of these other employees here, but then also it's an animal of its own. So I wanted today just to walk through some of the problems and some of the solutions to getting mobile homes titled. So I'll hand it over to you to run point on some of the problems you've been through. I don't know how many hundred of these things, and I kind of refuse to go to the DMV at this point in my life, even though I've got it behind me. Actually, I've got to go before my next birthday because my driver's license expires. So other than that, I'm only going to the DMV every 5 years. But you've been there many a time. So
yes.
Tell us maybe start off, what's the general process if all goes right, and then we'll walk
Sure.
through some of the nightmare scenarios that are always present in the world of trailers.
Right. So, in a perfect world, we would all love for this process to be how I'm going to describe. So perfect world, you find a mobile home. You want to purchase that mobile home. You contact the seller. You say, hey, I want to purchase this. They go, great. They pull out their title. It is registered in their name. It's the correct make and model and VIN. And they say, great, let's sell this to you. On a majority of the title, sometimes it's on the front, sometimes it's on the back. It'll be a signature place for the seller and a signature place for the purchaser. At that time, you would have the seller sign that they are selling the home, and then you, as the buyer, would put below your signature. Once you do that, you would go to your local Secretary of State's office, DMV, and you would go into the title side and said, hey, I want to come in, I want to change this title, put it in my name. And they have you fill out some paperwork, you pay a fee, and fees are always, again, located online if you want to check your local Secretary of State's office. And you do that, you fill out the information, pay, turn it into them, give it about 2-3 weeks, pre-COVID era. And pre-COVID, 2-3 weeks, post-COVID, 6 to 8, depending on your state. We're in Illinois, so it's definitely leaning towards 8 weeks. And you get that mailed back to you in the mail, and you have a clean, what we call the clean title, which means there are no liens, no anybody else's name. It's just, it is what it is, like your car title would be. You have, the information in your name in print, and you're good to go.
That's what you want. I want my name on the front. I want the title to mean that there's nothing on the back. There's no lien. There's nobody else. And it's a simple, easy process. But as we both know well, a lot of people don't transfer the titles properly. One of the most common mistakes, and it's not really that big a problem, to be honest, is when it's transferred hands 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times and nobody retitle it. And it's not a problem so long as the only person that's sold, or the only person whose name on it is a prior seller and not a prior buyer. So for example, if John Smith was the first owner. And before John Smith, the original title is called an MCO, Manufacturer Certificate of Origin, or a CO. You get this when you buy from the manufacturer. And if you're a licensed retailer or dealer, you don't have to pay sales tax because it's basically it's inventory until you sell it to the first person. Most states, you got to pay sales tax from the outset. A lot of states discount it, like Missouri, Kansas, for example, it's 60 cents on the dollar of a regular sale versus a can of Coke or something. But if the MC, if I've got my retailer's license, I sell to John Smith. John Smith's supposed to put in his name. If John Smith does so, and he pays the sales tax, and generally as a retailer, I have to be in the middle of it. I require that on a new home. So it'll be in John Smith's name. If John Smith wants to sell to Kristin, not a big deal. He signs it over to Kristin. What typically happens is John Smith sells it to Joe, and then later to Bob, and then to Susie, and 10 years go by, and then Kristin wants to buy it from Susie. And if it's got John's name on it or nobody's name in the back, then John Smith can sign the back of it, and it's probably not that big a deal. It's going to look like you bought it from John Smith. The problem is, and that normally happens, basically, it's all those people down the line don't want to go through the process. And as long as it's not dated, you won't get penalties. If there's dates on it, then typically there's a penalty. You got like 30 days to do it, and it starts racking up pretty good. Most states have a cap, but I mean, it could easily be $200-$300 in penalties per title. But let's go to the normal bad scenario. John Smith sold it to somebody, and to Joe, I think in my example, Joe's name is on there as the buyer. You're now buying it from Susie. How do we get it in Kristin's name?
Sure. So in this situation, we have a couple different options we can do here. First option being, if John Smith is listed as the buyer and he has signed the title, it is signed. What we would do at this point is we would go ahead and take that title because it's already signed, and we would take that to the DMV and we would process that. And in that time, we would also, while we're waiting for that to be processed as DMV, we have to contact John Smith because the title is going to have to come back in John Smith's name. So when that's the case, John Smith, we find him, track him down on Facebook. You look at Google, your dad's like very old school. I kid him a lot, but he has a phone book. The phone book has actually helped me with quite a bit of, phone numbers, finding people who don't have cell phones. So, at that point, you have to track down John Smith because we need his signature. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is fun fact, the mobile home is not actually yours in the eyes of the Secretary of State until your name is printed on the title. So in this case, John Smith, he has just signed, hey, I'm purchasing this. If this is the case, he's no longer purchasing it, we can go with the seller who originally sold it to John Smith, who is now selling it to us. We can go with them to the DMV. And there are, depending on which state you live in, there is an affidavit of a correction of sale where you can, the seller can say, hey, I'm no longer selling this home to John Smith. This home is being sold to Ferd Neiman. And at that point, you would then turn everything in. The DMV does their magic. They essentially void the signature of the sale for John Smith. And we would get the title back in our name.
That's good. I just thought of this. You probably have some sort of chart. I know you and I kind of know this process, but you should, if you don't have a chart, you should create one. We should give it to people because it's hard to follow all the name soup and alphabet soup here. And just, if somebody sends you a 5-star review of the podcast, of this episode, then send them the chart for free. But so that's one hypothetical. Another option there, I think the end user in my litany of names there was Susie. But Susie never had it in her name, but she was supposed to. We can have it shipped to Susie or to us and have title in somebody else's name. And if we have a chain of title of a number of bills of sale between all these parties, well, sometimes the person will have a bill of sale, but you don't really need a bill of sale if you sign the title. If you get the clean one, you just sign the back and you go title it. The DMV is not going to make you have a bill of sale, but it helps to have a bill of sale, especially if you're supposed to pay sales tax and know what the price is. But if you have the chain of bill of sale, we could actually get a title mailed to us in Susie's name. And if Susie was the rightful owner and we have a bill of sale whereby Susie gives us all of her right title and interest and indemnifies us that she's the rightful owner, we can take that in and we can sign. We got to make sure each particular state, or sometimes you got to get the DMV, or sometimes you got to get the right person at the DMV. I can sign off and say Ferd Neiman, comma, agent for Susie. And then I can get it titled in Ferd Neiman's name, irrespective of Susie not signing the actual physical title. If I'm now, you gotta be careful. You wanna make sure you're not committing fraud. And sometimes I've ran into it where somebody at the I used to go to the DMV and do this. And I went to clerk number one and she said, we're not gonna do this. You gotta get Susie in here. And I'm like, Susie died the day after she gave me the title. I'm not gonna find Susie and I'm not gonna go through her errors. So I just come back the next day and I go to clerk number two and they just say, here you go. And then they rubber stamp it and I get my title. So that's one good route. Let's say we can't find somebody, or let's talk about routes to find somebody who's up the chain of title, whose signature we need. What are some ways we can find them?
Yeah, sure. I mentioned earlier, the easy, most obvious ways were, look on Facebook, look on social media. That's what I usually do. Sometimes the people who, are a chain of custody back, they're a little bit older. They're probably not going to have social media, Facebook. So then you got to do a little more digging. Check an old phone book if you have one. If you just recently, found this location, if it's not in a park that you are already managing, it's just a home out in the country, go ahead and check your tax records, look at your property taxes, go back to the years, back through the years, and you can find another name. Sometimes you can even squeeze a phone number out of someone. It's always, I'm a big fan of Google, looking at people, looking for the name. When you have their address, sometimes you find family members. I had an example of someone who, it was about 5 years back. They'd been gone. They were an older gentleman. And I found him through his nephew on Facebook. And I was like, hey, I think this is your grandpa or, now great uncle. And, hey, can you help me get a hold of him? And he did. He said, okay, he lives in Ursa, 20 miles in this farm town, 20 miles away, and got in the car, got the signature, and it happened. Now, that's not always going to be the case. It's not always going to be easy. Sometimes you just have to get really creative. And most importantly, it will take time. This is not something that, you can expect to fix in 24 hours. It'd be great if you could. But realistically, when you're going back multiple years with somebody who signed a title, it's not going to be easy. If, for instance, we've, acquired some parks that we've started managing. If that's the case and you're trying to find, chain of custody, talk with the old owner of the mobile home park. Also talk with neighbors. Neighbors could say, oh yeah, that's my uncle, Uncle Jesse, his nephew's girlfriend's wife, something like that. The unique thing about mobile home parks we found is there's definitely a large sense of community. There's a lot of families that reside in the same mobile home parks. So it's a lot of people who they know each other or they know someone in someone's family. So it's really just picking up the phone, calling people, knocking on doors if you need to, and, just exhausting every avenue.
Right. I mean, finding the people. So that's I think there's a number of ways to find people. Sometimes offering them money. Hey, I'll give you $100 to show if you can find this person. Or we often offer our park greeters or park managers that, hey, go find this person, get the title, and you can have it. In particular, it's hard to find people when the home is worthless and you want to demolish it. You're not supposed to demolish an abandoned home unless you got the title, or you go through a number of processes. The most formal process is the Abandoned Title Act, Abandoned Housing Act, which typically involves posted notice on the home, posted notice in the newspaper, normally every 3 weeks, 3 times. Send it to the last known person who paid the taxes, the last known occupant, the last known lender, hold an auction, minimum bid. Each state's a little different, but it's a long, slow process. And honestly, I don't think we've ever had to go through that. People all the time say, go through this process. It's probably $1,500, hire a local attorney. It's going to take you several months. We've always found other ways to get it done that are all legit, right? So legit, and I think better, fast, bigger, fast, better, faster, cheaper. Tell us some of those strategies, because that's where the magic happens. I think is avoiding having to hire the dang attorney to do the Abandoned Housing Act and slow down. Because as you know, we like to buy a park and demolish those homes right away because it changes the culture. It shows the new guys are serious. And typically the last guy let those homes sit there for years and years and years and years. So getting them taken care of is of vital importance for a park transformation. So tell us some of the ways we get title when there's no known person, there's no known title easily available.
Sure. Again, there's multiple scenarios here. One would honestly be one of the most simple things. If you come in, we have a home you want to abandon, look in the home first. Sometimes people leave their titles in there. They leave it. I mean, that's rare, but check the home out first. See if there's anything in there. A lot of times there's a lot of papers, files, go through those. Another thing we can do is file for a lost title at the Secretary of State's office. That would require a little bit additional work because we don't know who owned it at first, so we have to be able to go on and verify through the tax assessor what's the make and model, what's the VIN number. A lot of these older homes that we would demolish, they no longer have a VIN listed on their cabinet.
Let me interrupt things to make sure we get all this right. So the VIN you're talking about is the data plate. It's a single piece of paper. It's typically in the behind the fridge or inside of one of the kitchen cabinets or in the electrical panel box in the master bedroom. So that's if you want to find and identify the home. But I want to pause for a second on lost title. You can't get a lost title unless you have rights to the home. So how do you prove your rights to the home? One trick we use is we regularly get the seller of the park to claim ownership of those homes. And sometimes they say, I don't have title to that one. Okay, well, we have a bill of sale, and it's not your typical one pager. Actually, it is about one page, but it's a bill of sale we use at closing of a park, and it has in there a bunch of representations and warranties by the seller and indemnifications. And one of them, we list all of the park-owned homes, including the abandoned homes. And 3 out of 4 times, the seller doesn't. 1 out of 4 times, the seller will say, I don't own the abandoned homes. I'm not going to represent that I own them. And then you got to go through some other steps. But oftentimes the seller will say, no, I own those. I just don't have title. Now I have some right to that home. We don't know how much of a right. I don't have as much as the person whose name is entitled, perhaps, but the seller has represented they own it, and the seller has told me they own it, and I get to rely on that. And I can take that to the state and say, look, this guy says he owns it. This guy gave me a bill of sale. This guy does not have the physical title. I'm here to file for a lost title, and they'll send it to me in my name. And now the risk is if John Deere, who owns the home, has been in Vietnam for the last 50 years, comes out of the woodwork and says, hey, where's my home? Why'd you just demolish my amazing trailer that's worth $100,000 because there were gold bars in it, right? We can say, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, John Deere. The seller told me he owned it. In fact, he put it in writing. In fact, he indemnified me. So I think you need to go sue the seller. And if you have some representation that you own it, you've basically shifted the risk or reallocated the risk to the seller. And that's a faster process. And then the state will give you actual title. And it's very low risk of John Deere ever coming out of Vietnam and claiming that home that's been empty for 25 years. But an extra belt and suspender method would be take pictures, take video of the home to prove it's absolutely worthless and abandoned. Utilities are not paid, taxes are not paid, it's unsafe, it's been condemned, et cetera. And I mentioned condemned, that's another strategy you're probably gonna get to, but if you get the city to condemn the home, there's often a path to faster demolish timeline.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct on that, Ferd. A lot of homes will come into the older parks, you'll see homes, they're just junk. It's essentially just scrap sitting on your lot. At that point, you call your city. That's when you make some friends. When we start managing a park in a new place, we always try, we call and introduce ourselves. Call and introduce yourself to city officials. Meet people, because those people will be the same ones that can help you, that can make this process easier for you or harder.
Right. And I interrupted you when you were talking about the data plate to find the VIN, because sometimes, like I know one park we bought, there were 25 park-owned homes. The guy gave us a box with 35 titles and said, pick 25. I'm like, okay, how do we match the home up if the cabinets have been ripped out and you can't find the data plate? How else do we identify the home?
Sure. One way that if they still have it, or sometimes underneath the hitch, on the hitch of each home, there is stamped in the VIN number. Over time, this can erode, it can go away, but we have been able to pull, here in Quincy, even been able to pull a VIN number off of a hitch by taking a piece of paper and a pencil and etching it. And we pulled it off. Another way that you can do that, and we can also verify, is to look at those county tax records. Look at the tax records. You can pull up your mobile home, your parcel, and say, okay, here's the VIN number they had. 9.5 times out of 10, it's going to be the correct VIN. You're not going to suddenly say, oh, these are completely different. And again, if you cannot find any kind of number on this mobile home, you've checked everything, it's not there, doesn't exist, go to that county assessor. That is going to be your law. That's going to say this is, they're going to be correct. And
Yeah,
that is your VIN number.
Yeah, for the most part, the county's depends on the state. Some states don't have, like Missouri has personal property tax. Illinois has mobile home privilege tax. So there typically is a tax man that is watching these homes for purposes of revenue collection. And sometimes they have a HUD seal on the outside too. After post 1976, it should have a HUD seal, but we've seen those off. It's a big time no to take those off, but we've seen them taken off many a times. But yeah, talking with the county is good to identify them. And sometimes you can't get the VIN, but you can measure it. And this is clearly a 16 by 60. It says Fleetwood on the front. Okay, you can tell by the roof line. It's 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. You can tell the age and roughly, and you can likely match them up. But I want to mention taxes. You mentioned finding it through TaxMan, but there's a nice little tip here. You can buy these homes on taxes. I've bought, I don't know, 7 or 8 homes at tax sale, and not because they were worth anything, but just because it cost $695 in some states, at least a couple of states I've done it in. Minimum bid. Nobody bids on them because they're worthless, because it's a demolishable home. Pay $695, you get it right there, as opposed to paying an attorney $1,500 to wait 2 months. So getting the taxes. So we've also bought homes in the tax sale that are worth $20,000. It's pretty rare. But so what I don't want to do is let my tenants' taxes go unpaid. So one thing we do is we watch the taxes annually to make sure our tenants are paying them. And if they don't, we have a provision in our lease that we can pay them on their behalf and add it to their monthly invoice. That way these homes don't get sold for taxes and pulled out apart. How is it? Is that as simple as asking the list? I mean, you're the one that's been watching those in years past. Is that all? Is that the process? Just ask the county for the tax sale list?
Yep. And they'll give you a list. Make sure you ask specifically, hey, I need the ones with mobile homes. A lot of times it's going to be just single family housing that's selling. So just be sure to say, hey, mobile home tax sale. Again, you're going to see a lot of duds. You're going to find some gold sometimes. I know we got really lucky here in Quincy on one of our homes. We bought a tax sale, I think $700. I think, gosh, we bought that $700. The great thing about tax sale is when you purchase it, they do the title work for you. So you purchase it, you send one check, you fill out a paper, and the tax assessor, when you get it back in the mail, you'll get the title clean. No need to go to the DMV. So I'm a big fan of purchasing homes at tax sales. But again, you can get really lucky. You can find some gold, or you can find something like I did. I think my first stud, I found one. It looked beautiful. So tip about tax sale homes. I found one here in Quincy. Thought it was great. I went and found it in Quincy. Looked on the outside. You can't go inside. Doors are locked. Windows were crowded, and I'm sure you're still hurting over this. Come to find out, we get the title back. We open it up, and it's completely destroyed on the inside. Terrible water damage, it's unfixable at that point. So, really do a little more due diligence on homes that you are purchasing. Again, don't go into the house. You can't do that, but you can, look in the windows, look around, and, just use some, rational skills. What's the roof look like? What's the age of the home? And just imagine what kind of, issues you'll foresee in the future.
Yeah. I don't want to give people false hope here, but I would say it is very rare to find any gold at the tax sale. I used to work in Jackson County, and I saw thousands of people stand on the courthouse steps bidding to buy gold, and not very many of them found it. You can't get inside the homes. A lot of the mobile homes, I used to drive the lists, and most of the homes aren't there. The county thinks they're there, and nobody's paying tax on them because the home was demolished already, or the home moved away. So it's more often than not, it's a waste of time. But we have found a few of them that worked out. One of them we bought was we bought it. Somebody was living in it, and they had filed bankruptcy, and their bankruptcy attorney forgot to pay the property taxes. So I called and said, hey, called the family and said, sorry, hey, you're in my house, and they said, no, we're not. We filed bankruptcy. We're supposed to stay a bunch of these credit collections and such. And the attorney said, you can't do this. Bankruptcy trumps everything. I said, but you didn't pay the taxes. He goes, well, it's supposed to stop a tax sale. I said, I'm holding the title to this home. So it didn't. So what are you gonna do about it? And he goes, well, I'll sue you, I'll win. They said, you're gonna spend 50, your client with no money is gonna spend 50 grand to sue me to get this $8,000 trailer. And he's like, so he ended up offering me like 5 grand for his mistake. And we got paid 5 grand and gave him the title back. But it was easiest 5 grand ever probably. What other ways do we find titles that are, I know you got more strategies. If you can't find the people in the chain, it's hard to get the lost title. If the taxes are paid, hard to do that. You don't want to do the Abandoned Housing Act unless you have to. What are some other steps before we get there?
This one, again, it depends on your year. I've had a case where the title actually did not exist because when the manufacturer gave it to the purchaser, they never registered it with the state. So at that point, I think it was probably a 2000 and forward. I then thought, okay, I have to call the manufacturer. No title exists. I exhausted my resources looking at, the tax rolls and, just anything and everything. It just didn't exist. So I called the manufacturer and said, hey, I got this home here. This is who I know purchased it. There's no title. They never registered it. So, you go through a process there and they can send you that original manufacturer certificate of origin. And then you can, then put that in, title that in your name. But again, that is, depending on the age, if we're thinking here like 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, most likely the manufacturer, they're not going to have that information still. I know one of the manufacturers did tell me they only keep, 20 and 11 forward. Everything else is on their old system. And, in the 60s, 70s, it was all paper. It wasn't on the computer. It wasn't on the cloud like everything we have. Another way of just looking for the title is, so we did a lost title. You can go and just file for that, look around for it. Let me think.
What about we had the double wide at Paradise Lane where we were renovating it and we goofed and we did not get the title transferred properly. We didn't realize the seller who lived in the park, who lived in this home, didn't give us the title at closing. And the title was in John Smith's name prior up the chain. And John Smith was still alive. So we could have went and got his signature to sign off, but the home was worth $40,000. So we didn't want John Smith to be like, oh, cool, they need my signature. I'll just move right into this, get my $40,000 home back.
Right.
So we were kind of in a pickle. So we had to use a different strategy you mentioned so far, and it was bonded title. Explain that process if you recall it, and I'll supplement that's the only time we've ever done it, I think.
Yeah. That was a big thing. So, again, we had this big double wide. We didn't have a title and we needed to do remodel work, get it going. So we got a bonded title. We talked to insurance agent. So bonded title, that is saying, someone is vouching for us that yes, this is theirs, this is in the works. We presented them with the legal paperwork that, hey, we purchased this home free and clear from this purchaser, that it's legitimate sale. And at that point, they bond the title and saying it's security for us, saying, we're putting money into this remodel. If, previous owner comes back, says, oh, I want this now. It's beautiful, it's fixed. That is going to protect us. That is going to say, hold on, no, that's not the case. This home is not yours. This is, ours. This is Kristin and Ferd's home. And then you continue to file for the title. Once you have that bonded title, you would then take that information. I think after there's a waiting period of so many days, you can take that information to the DMV and say, hey, here's my information. It's just an alternative route of doing it. I do recommend when you do something a little off book like that to call ahead. A lot of times when you go, the representatives at your Secretary of State's office, they don't know what that is. They're used to seeing a regular title with a signature. So my advice is call ahead, ask to speak to a manager, explain what you're going to come in for, and ask them what exactly you need. A lot of times they have to call the state office and get, some clarifications, so that way you're not going to your DMV and waiting 3 hours only to be turned away. So, that's definitely what I would do.
Yeah, let me supplement that process a little bit. So the bonded title, it's basically an insurance policy. So the example here, we bought the park from a guy named Kirk. We bought this home from a guy named Kirk. Kirk did not have the physical title. Kirk did not have any contract with John Smith that we bought it from. We had a contract with Kirk to buy the park. We transferred via warranty deed, and then to buy 3 or 4 mobile homes we transferred via a written bill of sale, a couple of which did not have physical titles in his possession, one of which was a burned out home we had to demo. So we did not have, you could call it, I think it's privity of contract with John Smith. So we couldn't just go get a title, go to the DMV. Hey, look, I bought this from Kirk. They're going to say, who's Kirk? We have it on record of John Smith owning this. We didn't want to go talk to John Smith. We didn't want him to kind of try to grab our 40 grand. But we were a reasonable buyer in good faith. So we were able to get an insurance policy through our insurance company and you had to pay. It was like a $50,000 premium. So what that meant was, if I sold the house to Kristin, Kristin legitimately can get title because I had a bonded title. Now, if John Smith comes out back from Vietnam and he knocks on the door and says, get out of my home, Kristin will say, whoa, I bought it from Ferd and I got a legit title. Now, John's gonna be pissed. So he's going to call me and sue me. And I'm going to say, here's the deal, man. I got a bonded title insurance policy. So you don't get the actual home back because Kristin's a legit buyer. But what you get is you get to draw down my insurance policy and my insurance company is going to pay you 50 grand. So you're going to be, quote, taken care of. Now, because my insurance company is going to lose 50 grand, they're going to charge me a premium. And not a premium as in a, high value, but a premium is like an insurance premium. Insurance premium in a $50,000 house, it was about $1,100 per year, and you're required to do it for 3 years. And if John Smith doesn't come back in 3 years after you bought the bonded title, presumably he ain't ever coming back, and you got away with it. Now, it cost you 3 grand. Now, in our case, we didn't want to pay 3 grand or 3,300, but we had to, right? So we paid it for one year up front, and then we sold the house to the next person who got a legitimate title. Now that we had the safety, we figured, let's go see if John Smith's a nice guy. Turns out he was still alive. He was not a grumpy old man like we often. He was a nice old man. And you or Dad went and found him, knocked on his door, and he was in a nursing home or something, and said, hey, John, you sold this to Kirk 25 years ago. He goes, yeah, I did. I remember. You go, Kirk lost the title. I bought it from Kirk. Will you sign this bill of sale saying any right you have, you give to me? He said yes. He's a nice guy. He signed it. He was paid for it by Kirk years ago, so it was fair. We then have paperwork showing we were the rightful owner from John Smith to Kirk or John Smith to us, from Kirk to us. We then give that to the insurance company and say, we don't need your bonded title anymore. We're legit. And we canceled the bonded title. We got $900 back and we didn't have to pay year 2, but year 3. And the person we sold it to doesn't have to worry about Kirk, me, or John Smith coming back out of the woodwork to place a claim on their title. So the bonded title process is probably the rarest. I don't know, 10 people know about it, and it's probably the most complicated. But man, it sure saved me the risk of 40 grand in that one instance, which was, us kind of cleaning up a mistake where we didn't catch this one at acquisition.
Right. Yep. And that just, goes into the school of hard knocks, things that we're learning that, that's what helps make us, great in our industry here. The things that you've learned, for just like that. A lot of people haven't experienced that, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to experience that at some point in this game. So, you're the mobile home park lawyer for a reason. But
Well, what's one thing we'd never want to do? This is easy.
Oh man,
it happens all the time. But
there's like 5 things we never want to do. I don't even know what your first one is. I think to me it's.
Well, I mean, it's pretend in this example we couldn't find John Smith. What's the thing we never want to do is we never want to forge his signature.
Yes, don't commit your first fraud, your first felony on a trailer. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Get a better story later. Something cooler. But yeah, don't forge people's names. Sometimes I know it's probably really tempting. You have someone and you see the signature line free and clear, and it's just, let me just write their name in. Don't do it. It's not worth it. And it's illegal. Just don't do it. It's easy to do, but not worth it. It's never going to turn out well for you. Definitely just take the time, do it right, get it done free and clear.
And we know about that process because we had a tenant that claimed, I think he claimed Dad did this, and the Attorney General got involved and ended up saying Dad didn't do it. And they couldn't prove he did it, and it was dismissed. But sure, we do our today's plan as far as priorities. That's not on my plan. That's not on my plan today. But it would move to the top of the list when the Attorney General gives you a ring. So don't jack with that. But I have clients that have said, hey, what if I just do this? And I'm just like, don't do that. I don't want to know. I'm not going to say which client that is. I thought that'll probably get me in a lot of trouble. Anyway, any other tips or tricks or items we missed?
Yeah, just some quick tips. Again, like I said, make friends with everybody. Be sweet as pie, and you catch more flies with honey, I think you told me. Also, just quick tips about when you actually get the title. Make sure it's not a fake. A couple months ago, we had a woman. She gave me a title, said, "Hey, it's signed, clear." Looked great. Everything was signed. Everything was great. Go to the DMV. They say, touched it. This is fake. I'm thinking, what? And I look, and it's beautiful. I mean, the ink, it's right. I know it's a real title. I hold 5 titles in my hand each day. She holds it up, no watermark. And again, like school of hard knocks for Kristin. In that sense, I go back to the seller. She didn't know. I didn't know. I've seen so many. It had perforation marks in the bottom. Yeah. So, I said, hey, I asked her, hey, this is fake. She's like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Then we filed for, a lost title. We went through that process. It worked out. But yeah, definitely like seal it. It's like $20 bill. Is it, hold it up, make sure there's a watermark, make sure it's thicker. These are not going to be your regular printer paper. It's going to be a little bit more heft to it. Another thing also, if you're writing on your title, you're signing it, do not scratch anything out. The DMV will say, leave. I think one time we signed, and I think it was, just a misspelling, and I put a line through it. Had to start the entire process over. And another thing I know we've gotten from one of our parks we were managing, we got our titles, and I found one that was in a bag because it was disintegrated. Thank goodness that title was a home that we demoed. But again, that would be another issue. Just don't scratch it. Don't do anything. Another good tip is when you get it, if you're, managing multiple mobile home parks, we always put the lot number in the bottom left-hand corner. Oftentimes when you're getting these titles, you're not going to mail it or register it into the actual address of the mobile home. You're going to put it in your office address. So again, you'll just put in the bottom left-hand corner, put, lot 2. That's not defacing the title at all. It's just you labeling, putting something on there for you to know internally. Also, keep a list of all of your homes. Keep an Excel file, with your lot, your address, your VIN, your make and your model, just in case something happens, in case you lose your title, in case, it helps you when it comes tax time to make sure that you've paid your property taxes so your mobile homes don't end up on the tax sale. So, there's all sorts of things, again, like this is what the mobile home park lawyer is here for, contact us. Like,
no, you cannot pay me enough to do your mobile home title issue. So I do not want any phone calls on that. You can hire me to do a lot of stuff, and that is not one of them.
None. Okay.
It's such a pain.
All right.
I don't need the money that bad. That's so serious. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. One last thing too, Ferd, on these titles, when you get your title, just check to make sure there's no liens. There's no bank liens placed on this. If there, nowadays when you purchase something through a bank, they'll hold the title, the physical title for you. 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't the case. It would just have a lien stamped on the title. So when you get it, if you see something that says lien, make sure there's a signature. It says lien released. There, a couple of years ago now, I had a home that I got a title on. They sold it to me, and it said lien. So I had to find the original bank in Nebraska, call them, send all the information, and it's, because you're working with a bank, and I'm not the person who, it's not my account. I had to fill out, all the legal paperwork necessary, and it worked out. They sent me what I needed, and I could transfer it. But, big thing here is just be vigilant. Don't wait when you purchase a home. Don't be like other people. Don't make the mistakes I've made of waiting to get it transferred, because then, we could sell the house in a month, and all of a sudden I don't have a title. So, the minute it's in your hot hand, you need to go to work. The minute it's in your hand, that's number 1 on your list.
Yep. Title stuff fast. Otherwise it becomes a pain.
Right.
One thing too, if there's a bank lien, typically the bank is holding the physical title. If the bank is smart, they're going to perfect their lien. They're going to file the UCC, the Secretary of State, and they're going to have it in their desk. So when you buy those, you may just get a photocopy from the person, or just call the bank, get authorization, get a power of attorney, and call for payoff and pay the bank directly. and have the title mailed you directly. That way there's less, what do I say, don't trust and verify. So just, I'm paying the bank, the title is going to me, sign off, I don't want the title going to the person after I've paid it off, because may sell it and run off again. So lots of things can go wrong with title. It's just be diligent, follow the process, and just be very diligent, frankly. All right, Kristin, thanks for sharing your wisdom. Till next time.
All right. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Bye now.